You know the exact second when you're staring at a screen you've stared at 1,000 mornings, and there's nothing inside you. No irritation, no fatigue, no frustration. Just a clean, hollow absence. Like the part of you that used to manufacture a reaction to all this has simply left the building, and you're left holding the empty uniform of a routine that no longer fits anyone. That hollow second is why you clicked. Carl Jung, the legendary Swiss psychiatrist, once the heir apparent to Freud, a man with a booming practice and a European reputation, stopped being able to function. Not from burnout, not from a crisis. He just stopped. He withdrew to a house on Lake Zurich. Every afternoon he walked to the water and played with stones and mud. Built little towers, villages, structures with zero practical purpose. Like a 5-year-old, his colleagues sent worried letters. His career from the outside was quietly crumbling. But Jung wrote something strange in his private journal. He said he wasn't losing anything. He was following something. He called it his confrontation with the unconscious. And he stayed in that awkward, useless, completely unexplainable space for nearly 3 years. That story is your story. And by the last minute of this video, you'll understand something about your own stall out that most self-help content will never dare tell you. You didn't break. Your compass just changed north. Not because it's a secret, but because it flips everything you've been told about what's wrong with you. We'll also get into why your fatigue isn't a defect, why the voice screaming, "push through," is actually the least honest voice in the room, and why losing your old motivation might be the first time you've ever had real direction. For most of your life, you navigated with a compass calibrated by other people. Your parents' idea of stability, your culture's snapshot of success. The silent contract that says safety is worth whatever you trade for it. And since everyone around you held the same compass pointing the same way, it felt like truth itself. Like gravity. Then something recalibrated yours, not with a bang, more like a slow pressure that crossed a line one ordinary Tuesday and never went back. Now the needle points somewhere inconvenient, unmapped, impossible to explain to anyone whose compass hasn't moved. A recalibrated compass doesn't feel like clarity at first. It feels like losing the plot. The office lights seem harsher. The voice on a Zoom call reaches you from a strange distance. Those small rewards that used to fuel your day, the checked box, the finished task, the moment of being helpful, stop registering as real. And without those signals, the whole experience looks from the outside, and often feels from the inside, like a breakdown. But nothing is broken. Your compass is finally working with genuine accuracy, and it's pulling you toward a life your current job was never built to hold. Have you noticed how the voice that arrives right here always sounds reasonable, responsible, almost kind? That voice says, other people have it worse and still show up. Other people don't have the luxury of collapsing over meaning. This is just self-indulgence dressed up as depth. That voice deserves a direct answer. But first, just notice. The voice never asks whether the life you're performing is true. It only asks whether you can afford to stop performing it. That's not wisdom. That's the old compass running its final, most convincing lie. Jung understood something modern productivity has spent a century trying to talk us out of. Your body is not a machine running parallel to your mind. It is your mind's most honest messenger. When your conscious brain keeps overriding what the unconscious is trying to say, your body starts screaming it instead, in a language that gets louder the longer you refuse to listen. The exhaustion that 10 hours of sleep won't touch. That specific weight in your chest on Sunday night. Not because Monday is hard, but because Monday demands a version of you that has been moving out for months. The way certain emails now trigger a physical shutdown before you've even read the second sentence. No motivational hack can fully override that. These are not signs of reduced capacity. This is your body's compensatory mechanism doing exactly what Jung described, making the cost of betraying yourself so high that you eventually can't afford to keep paying it. Every day you perform a self with no real connection to who you actually are. You spend what Jung called psychic energy, not as a metaphor, but as a real budget, with real consequences, and a bill that compounds the longer the show goes on. The exhaustion is not the problem. The performance was the problem. The exhaustion is just the moment your system stops letting you pretend otherwise, and it will keep escalating until something changes, because that's exactly what it was designed to do. You aren't unmotivated. You're motivated toward something else. Here's the reframe your inner critic most needs, and most doesn't want to hear. You've been taught that motivation looks like forward motion, output, engagement, the ability to show up and produce and call it a good day. So when that ability disappears, it feels like a loss, like something broken that needs fixing. But what if the whole premise is upside down? What if what you're feeling right now is your first genuinely accurate signal of what you actually want, pointing with a precision your old performative drive never once allowed? Your compass isn't frozen. It's moving constantly, pulling toward depth, toward meaning, toward work that carries your real name instead of a job description written by someone who has never met the real you. You are not unmotivated. You are motivated by something your current life has no room for. The exhaustion lives exactly in the gap between where the needle is pointing and where you're still standing. Not in weakness, in distance. And the voice that says everyone else manages fine is describing people whose compass never moved. That is neither their fault nor your instruction manual. After the compass recalibrates, something else happens that no one warns you about. The performance stops requiring effort and starts requiring you to actively look away, repeatedly, at things you can no longer unsee. The specific dynamic, where everyone on your team is pretending to be fine, and you're the only one who can feel the temperature of the lie. The way your workplace rewards the careful management of your own authenticity and calls that professionalism. The mission, the product, the meetings, all of it suddenly carrying a shadow you can now see with uncomfortable clarity, like finally noticing a strange smell in a room you've lived in for years. Jung called this the reckoning with the shadow. Not just your personal shadow, but the shadow of every system you participate in. And the particular cruelty of this stage is that you cannot argue yourself back out of the seeing. Rationalization used to depend on a certain distance from your own truth. That distance has collapsed. The questions your conscience is now asking do not have satisfying professional answers. The salary, the status, the comfort of known structures, they stop working as replies to those questions. Meaning was once a nice bonus. Now it's the only currency your system will accept in exchange for your energy. And it has stopped negotiating. Jung had a precise name for what most people eventually talk themselves back into. After an experience like this, he called it the provisional life. A life lived in permanent preparation for the real one. Always one more year, one more promotion, one more condition to satisfy before the actual beginning. People who spend their entire existence almost living, tolerating instead of inhabiting, standing in the waiting room of their own lives indefinitely. After awakening, the provisional life stops being uncomfortable and becomes physically unlivable. Your tolerance for deferring yourself, for trading aliveness for the warmth of a known cage, for choosing the waiting room because at least it's familiar, that tolerance shrinks to almost nothing. The willingness to have nothing, rather than keep performing something false, reads from the outside as recklessness. From the inside, it's the psyche's most sophisticated act of self-preservation. You are not being irresponsible. You are refusing to keep living in rehearsal for a life that was always supposed to have already started. What did Jung know while he sat by that lake building stone towers? He had no map, no language yet for what was happening, no timeline for when the in-between would resolve into something he could bring back to the world. He just knew, with the particular certainty that comes not from confidence, but from the complete absence of any viable alternative, that he could not return to the life the recalibration had made uninhabitable. He called this threshold the liminal space, the place between a self that no longer fits and a self that hasn't fully arrived. Spiritual awakening drops you there without asking, and everything you're feeling, the refusal, the exhaustion, the inability to perform the old life convincingly, is not the chaos of falling apart. It is the specific necessary pressure of something being built in the only conditions where it can actually be built. The compass is working underneath everything, underneath the voice, the fatigue, the impossible gap between where you are and where the needle is pointing. It has been working this entire time. You already know you cannot build what it's pointing toward while you're still standing inside someone else's blueprint. The only question left is how much longer you're going to wait for permission that was never coming. The people who came out the other side of this, who built something real, something that actually carried their name, none of them figured it out by pushing harder through the old life. They figured it out by finally taking the compass seriously, even when everyone around them called it a malfunction. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are in exactly the stage that precedes the most important chapter of your life. That is deeply inconvenient and also completely true. So take a breath. What is the one thing your current work asks you to pretend about yourself, about what matters, about what's real? Drop it in the comments. And if this video landed on something true for you, that's exactly what Wines of Thought exists to do. Hit like and subscribe, because every new video goes deeper into the psychology of awakening, transformation, and what it actually looks like to build a life from the inside out.